Okay, so we are now recording. This is the regular meeting of the Valley Green Energy Working Group. And today we have Paul Gromer joining us, but not until later in the meeting. So with that, I will start. The first item is to review the minutes from two meetings, from the January 22nd meeting, 26, and then the October 16th meeting from 25. I don't have the minutes from October, but I do have minutes from the 22nd. Were you all able to take a look at those already? Or I can also just put them up on the screen. We can take time to read them. They're pretty detailed, which I don't normally do, but Paul had so much to say.
Mhm.
I thought it was important to capture it all. So Adele, have you had a chance to look at those minutes yet?
No, I haven't had a chance, but I accept Ben and Bob's opinion, and
Okay.
we can move on.
Okay, so with that then, is there a motion for accepting the minutes of January 22nd?
And I move to accept the minutes of January 22nd.
And I'll second it.
Okay, and then voice vote, Agoglia,
Aye.
Wild,
Yes.
and
Yes.
I'm a yes, so minutes are approved. Okay, great. And next item is public comment. I do not believe we have any attendees, so we don't have any public, so there is no public comment. So the next item agenda is Valley Green Energy updates. I think if it's okay with you all, that maybe we'll switch the order this time and give Leah updates. So Adele, you can give some updates and talk about some issues that you had noted that you wanted to talk about. So maybe
Okay,
we'll start with you and then we can do Valley Green Energy afterwards.
great.
So
Uh,
thank you.
What is the RFP update?
So that was going to be part of my update. So that was my only update. So still trying to find someone who can give us a quote on developing the business plan. So I did meet with, so initially I met with one company. They gave me some potential leads because they don't develop business plans. So they gave me leads for other folks that they thought might. There were multiple. I sent emails to all, I called and left messages and only heard back from folks at what used to be VCK Law. I think they've either changed their name or are affiliated with another law organization. But a woman who was affiliated with Erin O'Toole got back to me and she had spoken with Erin. We had a good conversation. And then she was going to follow up to see if they actually develop business plans. They do not. So I have additional leads that I'm now working on. So that's where it is right now. So I'm working on it. I'm sorry it's slow. It is what it is, and I can't make it go faster. So unfortunately, I was kind of surprised when I went to release the RFP that we couldn't release it without, because I was asked what the budget was, and I was sort of referencing the budget that we have um from the earmark. But I was told you can't just base the RFP payment on what you have. It has to be based on an actual estimate of what the cost of the work is. And I can't do that until I know I have an estimate. So just so you are aware of the circle of cycles.
Is that true of other communities as
Yes,
well?
that's a Massachusetts.
Yeah. I mean, that sounds right. I mean, I'm sure there's some way, basically nod and a wink that you can kind of like make up some way to create a budget because it's catch 22.
Exactly. But the thing is, I don't, based on what? Like, I need to
Exactly.
have someone who knows, you know, the estimates for putting that together, and I don't have that. So unless, I'm doing what I can to
Yeah.
follow up. I mean, I'm working with the finance director on this. He's made some calls too. It's not like we're not doing anything. We're also starting our budget season, so it's a very busy time for him. So I can't, you know, normally he was actually making calls on his own, and I was like, I will do that because he's got enough on his plate right now. So, we're trying. It's all I can tell you. We're trying. We're doing our best. So I know it's,
Yeah.
I apologize, but it's not like we're not. We're just,
It's too bad we didn't know that with all of the months of delay that were involved. But anyway,
well, I mean, that was
Welcome
delayed.
to municipal procurement.
Yeah, exactly. And the other thing is, that was, that was also because we didn't have a finance director, and we needed to have our finance director take a look because Amherst is the one holding the accounts right now.
Yeah.
So it wasn't delay because we were just sitting on it. It was delay because we didn't have a finance director for a while. And then we lost our collector. So, or not a collector, our I forget what their title, comptroller. So, again, this is municipal government. We're doing what we can. I'm doing what I can.
Okay.
My feeling about this that I want to be clear about too is that I know it's slow, but like we're moving in a direction. And right now, I think, and what I've always said is when we do things, we want to make sure that we're doing things for like that we are going to have success. So it might take time, but we want to make sure that we're doing things right and properly so that we don't get sidelined later because we missed something or we tried to get around some procedure. Because I feel like that always catches up with you. So that's my take, and I'm sticking to it. So
Okay. Thank you very much for working on it.
you're welcome. You're welcome. It's not, it's definitely something I would love to sort of have moving forward. So with that,
Oh.
then that was basically my only real update. So if you want to launch Adele, please.
Okay. The other issue that I wanted to raise is about the Green Consumers Alliance Green Up program. Because apparently National Grid considers it an independent supplier or a community choice event. So they don't include those people who have the Green Up program in their list of customers who are eligible for our CCA. So we need to, I think we need to alert the people that are in the Green Up program that they need to disenroll from that before they can be eligible for the Valley Green Energy. And I believe that the mayor's notice to those people who had independent suppliers did not specify that. So a neighbor contacted me to better understand this situation. And it turned out that she was in the Green Up program, and she didn't realize that that made her ineligible for Valley Green Energy. So we have a lot of opportunity to work to alert those people in Northampton anyway. Ben, have you spoken to the mayor about that?
No, we haven't talked about this, but this isn't the general topic of RECs, right? It's what Green Up is basically just buy a bunch of extra RECs,
True.
make yourself feel good. So I have brought up the topic that was the topic last time in this meeting and got a vote from the Northampton Energy and Sustainability Commission, in which basically they agree that we should take everybody on this VGE standard, move them to basic, but only with a good communications strategy to let them know what's going on and to explain why RECs are no longer doing what they were supposed to do. in the current market. And for people who had opted to 100% green in the VGE program, that we would send the communication out to them with the recommendation that they shift down to basic, but that those people had made an affirmative choice to do something, and so they should make an affirmative choice to change it rather than having it imposed on them. And so they voted to agree to that. And so I think that this is a part of the same communication strategy, which is to reach out to people in Northampton and say, if you're paying extra money for Rex, you're not helping yourself. Here's the, explain the situation in the exact same terms that we explain it for VGE, because it is the same logic. And then say, VGE does offer this, but if you are in the Green Up program, you need to disenroll in order to enroll. And just to do it all as part of one communication strategy. Yeah.
That would be good. That would be great.
So how do we do that? I mean, I think that makes sense to me. I mean, I think we talked about this last time a bit, and I don't think we reached consensus, by the way, last time on what we should do. But if we wanted to do what you just described, then, who writes such a letter and who sends it out and all of that kind of stuff? Is it the same thing that we just did for the third party people?
I think that first of all, it's multiple approaches. So approach number one is everybody who's already on the VGE list, first point, generates these mailers using basically Paul Germer's outfit, helps us write good language and reaches out to them with the options as we just described it. But that, of course, only reaches those who are on that list. Then one, I would hope, generates another one with that list, like you said, from the people who are on third-party suppliers, that, because we had that mailing list using the same resource and the same language. But then the rest of it really just has to be a general outreach strategy from each community to their members of their community. And in the case of Northampton, assuming I ever am capable of being in public and not being a mess, that would probably involve some actual events and a radio interview. Like I've done these WHMP interviews a few times, and that seems to reach some portion of the demographic anyway. And so like basically outreach, which is difficult, but
So
we do.
I'm just going to jump in, Ben, because we do have an agreement with Mass Power Choice, and we do have a strategy.
Power Choice, that's it. Yeah.
Outreach, that strategies that were developed for the program by Mass Power Choice that were submitted to the DPU. So I think there are some protocols that we're going to have to follow. So really, I think, so Paul will be on the call too. Marlena is someone that we would want to bring in. Marlena Patton would be someone we want to bring in probably the next meeting, because Marlena is the one who sort of coordinates all that. So I think I foresee a challenge. I think the initial letter getting out to everyone, I think, would not be a problem. My concern is for those on third-party supply, because if you recall, we have to get First Point Power to agree to fund that mailing, and they did the last one for us, but it wasn't like, it's not guaranteed, and it's not guaranteed that they'll do this one. So that's my concern. And it may be that we have to use, we have to figure out what the cost of the mailing would be if that's the case. And either it could be funded with some of the money that we have from the, um, from the earmark, or I think in this case, because it's very directly related to the aggregation, we may be able to just use the funds that we have. That have been generated from the adder. So I would want to double check with Paul Gromer on that as well.
Yeah, of
How
course.
we can use those funds, which I think we can.
Yeah.
So
But
I
that,
agree with generally what you're saying.
but that begs the question of what to do about the Green Up program.
Well, you're never going to succeed 100%. Like it's just never going to happen. So that's
Well,
why I'm saying like you do the public outreach stuff that you can do, right? And that's got to be municipal because those people may not they may fall into this vacuum where they didn't get a letter from First Point as third party supply people because they're not really third party supply people, but National Grid at least is not treating them like people who are just on utility basic service, and so they're falling into a crack, and we may have no option other than just like do our best.
but the letter that was shared to me by my neighbor was from the mayor.
Yes.
So I would think that the mayor should send a letter out explaining that people on the Green Up program need to disenroll from that program.
Right. Well, we'll do that as part of this general outreach that's going to probably take more than one approach because people signed up for Green Up years ago, forgot that
Yes,
they did it,
yes,
did it at the time when the city itself was making a push for everyone to join Green Up, and
right.
you know, not everyone pays attention. Like it's just there is no way to capture everybody in any one effort, so it's going to have to be multiple efforts with an acceptance that there's going to be plenty of leakage.
And I
Okay.
think
Wonder if one of those strategies, and this may be, I don't know, I think of it as an opportunity for us in Valley Green Energy. One of the means of communication with all three communities, of course, is the Daily Hampshire Gazette.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering if we could create whatever they call it, an op-ed piece or whatever. This is
Yes.
not necessarily
Excellent idea.
specific to any one, situation, but it's about the recs and
Mm-hmm.
what's happened and
Mm-hmm.
how useless they are. And then advise people at the end of the article that if you are in a program like Green Up or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
and including Valley Green Energies,
Yeah.
all green, then you might want to consider making a change to basic. But it's just another one of those things. And I see it as an opportunity for us to get a little bit more visibility. I think if we wrote an article, man, the Gazette would eat it right up,
Yep.
and it would be great. So I want, I don't, I wish I had the technical understanding of why
I mean,
Rex.
I can draft a version and share
Yeah,
it with
I
you
was just gonna
guys.
ask you, Ben, if you wanted to work with me on drafting something.
Yeah.
You want to
If you
do
want to
the
start, that's
initial
fine.
draft. I know you definitely have the technical understanding. I felt like Paul did an excellent job of
Yeah.
explaining it, and it's in the minutes. Like I really captured literally everything he said, and so I
Mhm.
think that's a really good summary of the situation. And it's very clear. I love that about Paul. He's so clear,
Mhm.
and concise. And so we could do something. But before I mean, I think that's an easy thing to sort of talk about the green up issue. We can sort of maybe start with just that right now. Because I do think we need to make a decision. I want to talk with Paul more about this because at the very end of our last meeting, he sort of threw out there, like, I thought I had everything really clear in my mind about what we were talking about. And at the very end, he said, we have to offer, we have to, because it was a conscious decision on the part of people, that went to 100% green, that we have to keep that in there as an option. They have to make their own
Yeah.
choice. Which we understand, but he also said something about we may want to consider a 10% option, a 10% green option as well. And then I kind of got confused because I was like, well, isn't that our
No.
standard? So
That is standard.
then we're still offering it. So I just want clarification before we, in this moment, before we talk to Paul.
I mean, I feel like we can make this decision. This is, to me, very easy.
No,
And again, NESC voted on this, which is all the offers, the three different tiers continue to exist. They're in the contract with First Point. They just exist. We are presumably, but if we go along with what Northampton already agreed to, we are automatically moving everyone on standard down to basic and keeping everyone on basic. And we are then doing a communications push that includes letters to every VGE customer saying, if you were on standard, you've been moved to basic, here's why, and you're welcome for saving you some money. And if you opted up to 100% green, we respect the fact that you made a deliberate choice, and we are recommending that you go to the website or make the phone call and opt down to basic. But if you choose to retain 100% green, you can retain 100% green. If you want to split the difference, you can always shift to standard. And in fact, that goes for everybody in VGE. You can shift to standard. If we shifted you down and you just want 10%, you can do it.
Okay, so I'm glad you had a vote and you all decided, but we haven't yet. I don't know
Right.
if Helen has yet either. So it's not that straightforward about we can just make this decision right now, because I need to
No. I'm just saying, like, you've heard what Northampton's offering. Now
Yeah.
you guys can go make your decision, and when everybody's back on the same page,
Yeah.
then
And I mean, I like your approach for sure. I think the thing that still confuses me though is about moving everybody that's currently on standard to basic. I get that. But then we're saying, but I sort of felt like the option was really more for the people on 100% green to make the choice about, and recommend to them that they choose either basic, or if they feel like they want some green content, supposedly green content,
I mean, I wouldn't
they
do
do
that
standard.
because it's false. I
Well,
would
and
just say,
well, that's the thing is like, I feel like I just, because to me, it's like once we start giving that sort of options to people, like everybody can do that, it just seems like, well, then we're back to, it becomes switching people and,
well, but they do have options. I could call today and change my option.
right,
Or
no,
go to
I
the website.
understand that, but I think what we were saying was, we were making the decision
Mhm.
to take everybody from standard and they're all now
Mhm.
going to go to basic, which to me was essentially eliminating the standard option. Like in my mind, what was going to happen is this was going to then really just be two options. People that are in 100% green can stay there if they really choose to, or they can choose to go down to basic. What I'm saying is I felt like the way it was explained, that basically essentially eliminated the standard. But then
Mm-mm.
Paul threw in that the standard could, well, this is if we made the decision though for people, like we were making a programming decision to essentially get rid of the 10% option, right?
That's not really true.
understanding.
That's not really true. It still is there as an option. We're just saying, because when you were opted in without your choice, right? When you were just automatically opted in, you were put on standard unless you made an effort to go to basic or 100%. Therefore, we can assume for the most part that you weren't making choices. You were just taking what you were given. So we're doing what's in your best interest and saving you some money and avoiding lying to you about the green content of your electricity and just moving you down. But that standard option is still there. Anybody could choose it if they wanted to.
But see, I thought that's where we were going to go to First Point and talk to them about
That's for the
changing
next
this.
round.
No.
That's
We talked about, I thought, so again, just bear with me for 1 second,
Yeah.
because this is what I took from listening back to the last meeting. we talked about a lot of options, and that was one of them, for sure. What you're saying right now is one of them. What I understood, what I thought was sort of Andra's point, was that we just basically make the decision
Yes.
to essentially change the program right now and to
Mhm.
opt those people in standard to basic. We work with First Point, but First Point would basically be changing the program so that how I understood it was that standard wouldn't really exist anymore. This is just my understanding, and this is why I want to talk with Paul.
It just seems
Because,
like that version of it adds complexity, like contractual complexity, because now you got to redo the contract. Whereas you just say, we're all making a collective decision that we're going to move anyone on standard to basic, but basic will still exist as an option. We just don't think anybody should take it, but they can.
okay,
And that
I
way we
just,
don't have to write any new contracts. Like it all still exists just as it always did.
yeah. I
Yeah.
do think what I'm saying was presented as one potential feasible pathway.
Right, but that's just like, why would you do that? Especially
Well,
since you're going to renegotiate, you're going to get new prices and new, your new bidding and all that.
well,
In
our new bid is probably, as we all know, is not probably gonna offer, it's probably just gonna offer basic, right? It's not
right
even,
at that point, like at that point, go revise what you're offering and change contracts because you've got to do it anyway. But in this case, like why change anything contractual when you
right.
can just kind of do something administrative?
I
So this is
think the
more,
distinction between where Stephanie has been and where you're describing it here is who's making the choice. And I understand right away that, we actually made a choice when we said everybody's in at standard unless
Yeah.
you opt differently. So we made a choice right there. But from this point on, the assumption, one could argue, is the consumer's choice. And so either we can unilaterally do what you're describing and say, hey, the circumstances have changed, we're moving you, or we can simply explain how
Mhm.
circumstances have changed, make a recommendation, and let the consumer do it. And then we run into all of the usual hassle like, how do I do it? Oh, I'm having trouble. I got to make a phone call. I got to do this, and so on. And so the easier thing, of course, is for us to do it.
Mhm.
So I get that, but I think, Stephanie, if I understand where you are with this, we've got a program. It's got three choices, and people now can make a different choice based on new information or not. They could stay where they are with, like, for example, the standard rate. Um, so I think that's for me, what I'm understanding from all of this. We're not changing the contract. I get that. There's going to be three levels. The standard's not going away, but we are going to move, if we decide to do this, we are going to move people from standard to basic. And we're going to do it. They're not going to make the choice. Or we give them the information and they make the choice and go through the rigmarole. I mean, I'm going to make a shot, I'm going to take a shot at this myself personally, and I'm going to see if I can change from standard to basic. And I probably should have been in basic all the time because I don't buy electricity, but I did it to support the program. But so, but I'm going to try. I'm going to see what happens, and I'm going to guess that I'm going to run into some challenges. Let's put it that way.
No, it's so easy.
So
yeah,
I go to the website and I make a change.
yeah.
You go to the website, you put in your account number, you make the change, you're
Okay.
done.
It's not hard at all. I mean,
Okay.
and that's the
Well,
thing. So,
I'm going to do it. Yeah.
so Bob, I thank you because I think you captured the whole conversation and where we were coming from. Um, so we're still just saying all three, we are making a decision for people in that if they are in standard, we're going to switch them to basic. So we are making that decision for them. But we're also saying these three options still exist. You're welcome to choose. We don't recommend it. We
Right.
think this is better for now.
Yeah.
And I was thinking a little bit more, Adele, to your point at the end of the meeting where you said why that you don't really see anything really sort of wrong with how those credits are being applied at this point across the state. And I was thinking about it a little more, and I think what Paul had said to me that he didn't necessarily say in our meeting when he and I had our initial conversation. He said that, you know, our local residents are not benefiting as much as they might if we do what we're proposing to do now. Because I think if my understanding was that the governor offered like a $50 discount, but is that on every bill or just once? The one that applied to- If it's a one-time applied discount, it's likely that our customers will spend more if they do what we're doing.
Mhm.
You know, so if we actually do sort of take charge of that, how that credit is being applied, and we, you know, we do the scenario we're proposing here, that, you know, our customers, all of our customers collectively are likely to do better than just one $50
Yeah.
bill reduction. So I think that that is the point, Adele. I thought about it and it sort of hit me and I was like, well, that's why we should do this, you know? So,
I understand. That's great.
so, well, this is really, really a great conversation. I'm really glad we're having it. You know, I just sort of want to be clear too, you know, because it doesn't contractually change anything, I think it'll be a lot easier to, you know, to speak to the town manager and, you know, make sure that he's okay with our moving forward with this. And our finance director, I feel like I need to include him in the conversation too. So I'll make an appointment to talk to them certainly prior to our next meeting, but it might be good to, we'll ask Paul when he comes on it too, but, might be good to invite Marlena to the next meeting if she's available and see if she can sort of help us with how we package this all together and maybe give us some guidance. And they'll probably, if I know them, will probably draft language because I know that there are very sort of, there's particulars that the DPU likes to see and she's so on top of that. So maybe we, you know, we sort of get some guidance from her and maybe she'll even draft it for us.
So my feeling about that is, of course, we should get all the help that we get from them because, like, that's why we have them. And therefore, we should have a decision made before that next meeting. You already know that Northampton had its process. We've got a decision. And I feel perfectly authorized to take some version of that to match whatever you guys are willing to do. To me, like, this is just not even a hard decision.
Yeah, no, I don't think it's hard, but it also has to be vetted. You know, I don't think it's hard. I just think it needs to be vetted and it needs to be understood why.
Yeah.
But, you know, switching people to the least expensive, especially for, I mean, you in Northampton have been able to enjoy rates below your utility rate the whole time.
Right.
We, unfortunately, Pelham and Amherst have not. So it's not, I don't think it's going to be a hard sell because right now our rates are lower than the basic rate.
Yeah.
But that's been the first time in a while because it would have been harder. It would have been harder if that weren't the case.
But
in some
perhaps by the next meeting, the various communities, the three communities should have made a decision.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying is if by the next meeting, Pelham and Amherst have made a decision, then we have a decision and we can give Marlena the task, please help us execute this decision.
Exactly.
And in the meantime, because there's no reason not to move, if we want to write this op-ed that Bob suggested, which I think is a really great idea, and Stephanie, if you want to start drafting it, that's fine. If you want me to take a first crack at it, whatever. But, you know, I think something, you know, signed by us from each of the municipalities, I think that's pretty good. Yeah, and again, it ends with not just a call to action, but a how-to. I think that's pretty good.
Yeah, and I'm not disagreeing with you, Ben, about making the decision, or you, Adele, about making the decision before the next meeting. I was actually agreeing. I'm just saying, you know, with our process, it was just, you know, it wasn't as straightforward because of how the aggregation has worked price-wise for us.
Right, yeah,
You know, it's been a little more challenging and not, you know, we've lost some people.
yeah,
Um,
of course.
So, you know, I think trying to get people back too, especially, you know, at this point, the timing is good because our standard rate is not below the utility basic rate,
But the basic is.
but the basic is.
Yeah.
So that will be easier for us to make this pitch.
And, and again, we can put that into that op-ed and, and talk about it on the radio and all this, all this stuff. That's just kind of part of the process.
Yeah, I
Um,
wonder if we can get on the 413 again.
That would be cool. I don't know. I wonder if it's enough of a news hook to, yeah, sure, why not? Actually, recs are complicated and interesting. Yeah, why
Yeah,
not?
I mean, I feel like this is, you know, I don't, because it's not unique to just us, right?
Yeah,
It's going to be
everywhere.
common for everyone in the
Yeah.
Commonwealth. So, you know, why does it sound like these aggregations now are telling you not to go with green? Like, what's happening? You know,
Yeah.
that's definitely, I would think, something they'd be interested in. So, I'm
And I
happy
also-
to reach out to Monty.
And I also think that, what we're doing at this point in terms of these different now mass media outreach, sort of the Gazette, maybe 413 and so on. I'm not sure that I see it as announcing anything from Valley Green Energy at all, but rather because we're in the business
Yeah.
and because we're community based, we are reaching out to everybody to educate. Look, this is what's happened as a result of these idiots, who are in charge of the country. This is what's happened, and we want you to know. We don't want to say
Yeah.
it like that, obviously, but we want people to understand that something fundamental has changed with respect to the incentives for green energy.
Yeah.
And so we can say, well, because we are educating you. And if when you read this or you hear this, you decide you want to act, well, here's what you can do as a Valley Green Energy customer. But that's as far as I would go with the Valley Green Energy part of it. I think that unless we've made the decision to move people from
We
standard,
don't announce that.
we
No.
don't include that. But if we've made the decision, we could include it, and it
Yeah,
could
of
be
course.
part of
Well,
why
I
we're.
think it's all timing, right? I mean, if
Yeah.
I don't imagine this is an interview we're gonna like do next week or anything, so certainly
Right.
not before the next meeting. So, I mean, we could, when we get to the next meeting, then, you know, sort of list these things that we want to do at the next meeting, get general agreement, and also I do think Marlena and Paul need to be maybe part of that conversation, or at least Marlena. And then proceed from there. And by then we'll also know, you know, for sure what we decided, which I think we're
And
already.
I won't be at the next meeting. I don't know how this impacts anything because I'll be out of the country. But I certainly could write to both of you with a vote from our select board on the issue so that it's on record that we've done, quote, our due process, unquote.
Mhm.
Bob, I'm glad you said that because that just reminds me, actually, I'm not going to be available for the next meeting date either. So I was going to ask if we want to find a different date. So we could do it, you know, the week before, the week after. I don't know how long you're going to be out of the country, but we could.
But we leave on the 14th of March. So if you wanted to meet right now, we would be scheduled when, on the 19th?
Yes.
So if we met on the 12th, I would be in town. And I don't get back until the 7th of April.
Okay. Um,
So it's, I don't want you to do this for me around my schedule, but you don't
I
have to,
don't,
you know.
it's 1 week earlier, and I don't think that's a big problem. The only thing I would have to check is other meetings, because sometimes I have a town council subcommittee that meets on Thursdays from 1 to 3, and I've been on their agenda for clean energy bylaw stuff, and I may still be, and that might be a date that I have to meet with them. So what we could do is also propose that day, but maybe a different time or a different day that week. It
Yeah.
doesn't always have to be on
Yeah,
Thursday.
Thursday, right.
Do a Tuesday, we could maybe do a Monday or Friday or whatever.
Yeah,
So,
all good.
so
all
what
good.
I'll do, I think, is I will send a doodle poll with some options for meeting date and time for the next meeting. Just making a note to myself. And I'll make it for that week of whatever the week of the 12th is.
And I just want to be clear about, because I'm, going to create an agenda item for our select board meeting, and then a vote. And my understanding of where we're going with this is the vote is to approve the change proposed by Valley Green Energy to move customers who are currently in the standard rate to the basic rate. That's the move. I mean, we're not taking any
Mhm.
other action per se. We're going to allow people at the 100% to make their own decision. So really, the only action that we're looking to authorize, have I got that correct?
Yeah,
Mhm.
Okay, all
Yeah.
right, good.
okay. That's great. Good. So, okay. So I will create the doodle poll, but our agenda for the next meeting will, so it'll include, I'm hoping Marlena will be there. We will hopefully have all had our decisions made. I think mine is, I don't think it needs to go to the council because the rate is all, I mean, that's like a contract negotiation that the town manager is involved in. So I think it really only needs the town manager's approval. There's not another committee in our town that's overseeing this. So I think kind of this is in some ways it. So our decision here sort of is what will be recommended to the town manager. So I'll talk to him. So hopefully we all three come back. I mean, Ben, you've already got it set, but so we'll come back. I will invite Marlena, possibly Paul may or may not come, but certainly invite Marlena as to how we do this, because I know we have ideas on our own about what we do, but again, I think because it's about rate information, it's going to be very important that Marlena be involved in drafting whatever goes out because it's going to have specific language. We can do whatever we want, I think, for the op-ed, as long as we get,
Mhm.
she just has to read it and make sure that that it's okay and we're not saying anything that isn't consistent with what the program offers. So we'll just make sure that she sees it. So again, we just want to involve her in all of the communication that we're doing for this. So, all right, so I'm gonna have a note to invite Marlena to the next meeting. And I know we're gonna be repetitive because when Paul comes, we're probably gonna talk to him about all this. All right, Adele, did you have any other updates from Leah?
No,
Okay, so it's just about 1:45. So what I'm gonna recommend we do right now is just take like a 15-minute break. Just leave your cameras on and your audio mute, I mean, your camera's off and your audio muted. Don't leave the meeting, and we'll just come back in like 15 minutes.
Sure.
Hopefully Paul will have joined us.
Okay, so 2 o'clock is fine. Because I'm sick, I actually got a doctor's appointment. So I'm gonna have to leave at 2:15.
Okay, I don't know how long Paul will stay on. I think probably the substance of what I was thinking in my mind we would talk about, we've kind of had the conversation.
Mhm.
So we can sort of update him to what we're thinking and if he has anything else. I mean, I know he was going to talk to, he still had to verify with Force Pike Power that they were okay with this. I don't see how it would impact them at this point because it's people just making a choice. But anyway, I just want to, again, just want to check in with him. So,
Mhm.
I'd suggest we come back at 5:02. He may come on early.
okay, yeah, he had another meeting, so
Oh, I
I'm
see.
not quite sure he will.
Okay. Okay.
So let's just plan on I'll email him and let him know
Okay.
All
doing.
right. So you
But
want
I
us to
think if
stay on and just mute.
stay on and just mute. Yeah, you can
Right.
turn your video off. That's fine.
Okay.
Just stay on though.
All right.
Okay.
See you then.
Do.
All right. See you in a
Bye.
So Stephanie, I just did it. I changed my option.
Oh, see how quick that was?
Yes, but you know what? There were several times that I had to go back and forth. It was not, it was straightforward, but it wasn't easy. Let's put it that way. And I
Oh,
could see where people would have trouble. Um, but I did it. And so I've made the change, Ben. I'm now a basic customer.
Yeah,
um,
spending $0 anyway.
we,
Right.
yeah, we have solar too, but that has not been the case with our bills. Do you have a, electric vehicle too, by any
Yes.
chance? Do you
Yes.
have a charger at home or do you just use the,
I have a charger at home.
wow, okay.
It's
We,
Pelham.
What's that?
It's Pelham. What else are you gonna do?
yeah, well,
Well,
because we,
when we installed these panels, we switched everything to electric. Heat pumps, the
Mhm.
heat pump hot water heater, the car, everything went from gas to electric on our to induction on our stove, et cetera. And we're lucky we cover it all.
that's
Living the
great.
dream.
And we've done that except for, the only thing we haven't done yet is our hot water. Um, because where our tank is located, it would be in a closet that the installer was saying, putting, like the heat pump, we'd have to put a vent on the door and there's a heat pump across from it. And he was like, the mechanics of that are not great. So we're probably just going to go to an electric hot water heater.
Mhm.
We just haven't done it yet because we had an oil delivery because my husband forgot to cancel the service. So now we have to wait until that, until we, bless you.
Sorry.
Let me just see if by any chance I heard back from Paul, but I did. Oh,
There he is.
There he
excellent.
is.
Hi,
Perfect.
Paul.
Well, Paul, you are incredibly prompt. Um, thank you so much for joining us because we know you spent a lot of time, and this probably is going to be a fairly quick conversation with you.
Sure, you
But
bet.
we just rehashed, a lot of what we were talking about last time, and I think Northampton's already acted on it. So they have already got a vote from their energy committee to go ahead and inform people that people at the standard level are going to be switched to basic. And then we are going to, so we were talking about sort of how Pelham and Amherst sort of need to make sure that we're also on board with the same strategy and that when we come back to our next meeting, could discuss then the outreach for moving forward. And I was hoping we could maybe see if Marlena would be available to join
Absolutely.
us at the next meeting. Assuming that so we were talking about how to sort of draft the correspondence about that, and I'm assuming Marlena would maybe take the lead on drafting something, given that it has to probably meet some DPU criteria and language.
Mhm.
So, okay, I just wanted to make sure that was
Sure,
correct.
no, yes, no, absolutely. So we can help with that and I mean, either way, in terms of who does the first draft, I think we would want to sort of pass over the final one just to make sure we didn't raise any concerns from the regulators, but there isn't a template for this. So I think, you guys could start. We do know how a few other communities have talked to their residents about it. Slightly different circumstance. They've chosen not to include Rex going forward in new contracts, but we know how they've spoken about that.
Yeah. So, yeah, and I'm assuming that, the next version that will be the case, that we will not include Rex at
Yeah.
all. So I think so for the next meeting, I think the strategy right now is at our next meeting, we will have all made the decision in our respective communities to move forward with this. The understanding is that everyone at the standard rate would be opted into basic. And then those in the 100% option will be it'll be recommended to them that they choose the basic rate.
Well,
I
it'll
think
be,
that's,
explained to them why. I mean,
yeah, and explain to them,
we'll explain
right,
to everybody why, and then,
right,
yeah.
right. So, yeah, so I think that's the thing, but we can talk about this with Marlena, and I'm sure, I would feel comfortable having Marlena maybe give the first pass if we tell her
Sure.
the kinds of things we want included. Because I just feel like she already knows sort of the basic standards that DPU is gonna want. I feel like I would rather have her sort of draft that letter initially, and then we can review it and then go back and forth if we need to. Is that okay with?
Absolutely. No, absolutely.
Okay, and
And Paul, do you have, or does your group have a written um, explanation of what is happening with Rex and why they are no longer the incentive that they once were for green energy? The reason I'm asking is I know we talked about this at our last meeting. It's in our minutes. But if your group already has something written that explains what's happened and the implications of it, that would be fantastic for us because we were talking about doing perhaps a release that we could provide to our newspaper and explain what's going on with Rex and explain also what Valley Green Energy is doing in relation to it. But we would want to make sure that we were pinpoint accurate on every aspect of the explanation. Do you have such a thing?
I do. So we did a write-up like this for Newton about, I don't know, 4 or 5 months ago. What I would do is let me take a look at that. I update it, make sure that it's current, and I'll send that to you guys to take a look at.
Great. Thank you.
excellent, that's perfect, Paul, thank you. Yeah, I'm sure we're not, we're not the only community you're dealing with that's looking at all of this, so. Yeah, that would be great. So I don't know that there's anything else at this point. Oh, I did have one question for you, Paul, actually. Just in terms of how this works with First Point Power, does there need to be any communication on your end with them about this? Or is it pretty much like, because we're basically still allowing for the three options to exist, it's not a contractual change, so.
Well, so yeah, so I should definitely have a conversation with them, and I'm trying to just process as we're speaking the mechanics of how you are proposing to do this, which are is a perfectly sensible way to do it. It's just not how I was thinking about it. So I need to just think it through a little bit more. So what I had been imagining, but your approach may be better. So I'm not arguing for it. I'm just saying what was in my head was you would just change the standard. So the standard product. So standard product used to be this. Now it's going to be this with no Rex in it. That's one thing. And then you could do that effective when you wanted. So you could do that, for example, you could do it effective to the beginning of the year if you wanted to make that change. What you're suggesting, which is perfectly logical, is say, no, we're just going to switch people to a different product. That means the switch would happen later. So, like even if we were to direct First Point to do it today, that won't take effect till March at the beginning. So it'll take effect a little bit later in the year. I don't know that that matters. Forgive me for just trying to think out loud about the different permutations here. I guess. Yeah, let me just think about it. I'm not sure that it really matters. We definitely want to let First Point know, and they'd actually have to do it. So they mechanically they have to process the switches.
So, Paul, I want to make sure I understood what you were thinking. So here we're telling you that we think, we would like to make the move and just move everybody, except for the 100%, and just inform them and let them make a choice. What were you thinking that was different from what we just described?
So what I was thinking was that you would say, we're changing the composition of the standard product. It used to be with 10% extra Rex, and it's not going to be that anymore. It's going to be no extra Rex, and this is why. What difference does that make? The difference between the way I was thinking of it and the way you guys have thought of it? I'm not sure it makes all that much difference, but that's what I'm just trying to think through. One difference is the switch happens a little bit later. Under my approach, you could make the switch say, January 1 if you wanted. That would mean there's a little bit more savings. On the other hand, the way I was thinking is maybe a little bit less good in terms of communicating with the customers. I mean, maybe it's better. You tell them this is what we're going to do. It's going to happen on this day in the future. And you have some options if you don't want us to do that. For example, you could opt up to 100, you could leave the program, whatever else. So I actually, as we're talking, I'm liking your approach better than what I had been assuming. Um,
And also, Paul, I think this was a point that Ben made earlier. We're not changing our contract. We still have a basic standard and 100. We're just changing what the default. The default used to be standard. It's still going to be there. So if we change everybody to basic and somebody still wants to be in standard, they could go in and opt into that. So we're not changing a contract with the supplier at all. We're just changing the default.
And Paul, what you're mentioning sort of dates of this happening. Um, I mean, it's February right now. When would we be able to, if we decide like this is what we want to do and we want to opt people, to make basic our quote unquote standard automatic enrollment option? When can that happen? Like, if we're the ones sort of prompting that change, people haven't decided it for themselves, we're making it, when can that occur?
right. So, I mean, on the approach you're suggesting, which is a switch over, it would be, whenever you tell people it's going to happen, and then it would be effective on their next meter read date after that. So let's say you gave people 30 days notice, and then their next meter read after 30 days is when it would take effect. So that probably means roughly April is when it would first happen. Very smooth and clean, good notice to customers. They know in advance that something's changing. Seems like a pretty good path to me.
Yeah.
If you wanted to do it differently and maximize the cost reduction, you could just choose an earlier effective date, and the thing you'd be doing is not switching customers from one product to another. You would just be switching the composition of the product. So standard used to mean plus 10%. You could decide as of X date, standard no longer means that. Standard means no extra renewables. And you could do that, I think, on a date of your choosing. You could do it, certainly like effective January 1 if you wanted. You could also, if you wanted to maximize savings for customers, mechanically you could make it effective January 1 of last year. And the reason you can do that is, it seems surprising, right? The suppliers don't have to, the way the rec market works, you don't have to buy all of your recs until the spring of the following year. So First Point won't have bought all the 2025 recs yet. And if you were, we'd have to ask them, but it's certainly possible if you were to say, we don't want you to buy 2025 recs anymore, tell us what that would mean for our contract price. They would tell you, and it would be a lower price. The savings would be applied in the future, not in the past, but it would mean you'd get more savings for the future. Now, I'm just going to play out this option so you can consider it, not to argue for it. I mean, some people might say, well, that doesn't seem right because since this is a year ago, we told people the product was going to be X. How could we be changing it retroactively? And that might be the end of the discussion as far as you're concerned. On the other hand, you could consider, well, when we decided to buy those recs in 2025, it was based on an understanding of what that meant. And what that meant was the extra money went to clean energy. The state has changed that rule retroactively, and that money no longer goes to clean energy. It goes to provide a rate discount for people who live in other towns. And now that we know that that's what they're going to do with it, we don't want to spend it that way anymore. And we actually have the option to stop spending it as of January 1 of last year, which would mean more savings for our customers. Now, some people might say, well, wait, no, we're not can't do it that way. We're trying to change the past. Other people might be comfortable with that.
So Paul, what you're describing then, if I understand this correctly, is a change in our contract with First Point.
Yeah,
Okay, and we can do that midstream, no problem. It's an amendment to a contract.
correct.
Thank you, Paul,
And
because
you
this is
think,
how I understood one of the options that you gave us last time, and we were having this discussion earlier, and how I was seeing it and what you were saying was basically that we were going down really to two options, that there was really just going to be this one sort of standard that everyone gets into. There is no basic, because the basic is the standard basically.
Right.
And then there's the 100%. And that's what I was understanding at one point that you had said. So I was sort of stuck on that, and thank you, because that clarifies it now. So,
Right.
but to this point, I don't feel necessarily clearer. I feel a little more confused as to how we're proceeding. I think what we had talked about, again, like when we talked about just maintaining the three options as it is now and switching people over, that won't require any kind of a contractual change. Is that correct?
Um, I think the only change it would require is, I think you going forward, you would want new people to go into the basic.
Right.
So the contract now says new people go into the standard, so we need to change that. I'll say though, and you shouldn't, I can understand why you might be hesitant to do things that required a contractual amendment. I can tell you in this case, First Point is very flexible. If there are things that you want to do that are reasonable, they'll be reasonable with you in amending the contract. So that's really not a barrier. If it were a different supplier, I might say, let's do everything we can within the contract and not try to make an amendment. But First Point is quite reasonable and flexible. So they would work with you if you wanted.
Will DPU have to be notified?
That's a good question. It hasn't really come up before. Certainly not in advance. I think you'd have to say after the fact what you did, just in your annual reporting and everything else, and you'd have to like issue a notice saying what you were doing. And again, sort of changing the past, which is the path I'm saying is possible, might just feel uncomfortable from a customer communication point of view, and you might not want to go down that road. I do think the basis for going down that road is, well, the state changed the impact of what we did in the past. And if given that we have a chance to undo it, we're going to undo it. And I don't see how they have any standing to criticize you when they're the ones who changed the impact of Rex. Now, I haven't asked them that, and I wouldn't. I would say, let's just do it if you want to do it.
My inclination, first of all, from what you've described, Paul, it's not mechanically difficult. It's not a problem really to change the contract to say that standard is basically the same as basic. And that means that nothing has to change on people's selections, except for those who wish to move down to standard or basic, whichever they want, because they happen to be the same. So from the customer side and from explaining it, it's identical. We're still explaining the exact same thing. I was the one who thought, oh, let's not mess with contracts. But if you're saying messing with contracts is easy, then that's not an impediment. And honestly, the fact that you're going back to the past and changing some stuff, like from a political standpoint, nobody's going to care. The important thing is that you're saving them more money. So I think that's the important thing, is being able to make that argument that here's how much more money we're saving you, and we're avoiding spending money on something that's not what we originally thought the money was going to do. So I think that the option that you've offered, which is just change the contract and then do it back to January 1st, I have no problem with that.
If retroactive, does the utility provide a refund?
No, great question. So we wouldn't be refunding customers for what they paid in the past. We'd be changing the price of what they pay going forward.
Wait a minute, wait a minute, wait a minute. If we go back retroactively to January 1st, 2024, um, there is no credit that customers will realize?
No, it's that customers would pay less in the future. So
Okay.
so there's no mechanism for crediting people in
So
the
now
past.
that you've said that, Paul, I'm not ready to go through the kind of shenanigans to explain why we're doing something retroactively and blah blah. I mean, it's like if they're not going to get credit, the impact is exactly the same going forward, right? It's only
Is
going
it
to
though?
affect rate going forward.
It would be bigger. So, and
Yeah.
I'll use some numbers to give an illustration. So let's
Okay.
say, and this is an exaggeration, but to use round numbers, let's say the cost of the extra Rex is $1 million a year. So if you just change 26, what will happen is there'll be $1 million in savings, which will produce a rate discount of, again, use a round number, let's say half a cent. If you go back to 2025, now you have $2 million in savings, and that would mean the rate reduction in 26 would be 2 cents.
Yeah.
Again, those are just round numbers. It's not that big, but
Okay.
Right. But the
Okay.
concept, right? So the concept is the new price that you get to see, like as a customer, we're able to tell you the new price that you're going to get to see is even better than the basic that we were offering before.
Right. And
That's better.
yeah, and
Okay.
I have a question though. This is obviously only good for as long as our contract with First Point.
Yep.
And I'm sorry, totally blanking because we started in 24, so isn't this only good till November of 26?
Mhm.
Okay. And in April, we're going to be going out to bid again for a new contract. So will that discount, like, will the term of the contract be taken into account for how that discount gets applied? I'm assuming that's how the rate and the discount gets determined is what's remaining in the contract?
exactly right. So that's just what I was thinking of it. So let's say they have $1 million to give back, and it's going to go back over 9 months. They divide 9 months of usage by $1 million, or $1 million by 9 months of usage. It produces a savings of X, and they'd apply that to all the kilowatt hours going forward. And I apologize for making this even more complicated, but you do have a further option. So you could stop there, just what I said. Or if it feels like, wait a minute, there's a whole lot of changes going on here, and then we're going to change the contract in 6 months anyway, so that's going to be another change that's really confusing. What you could do is ask First Point to, if you were interested, you could say, well, we want to do what we just described, but we want to extend the contract for, say, another year. Can you take that savings and apply it into a new price from now through a year and a half from now, not save it over the next 9 months? That would mean less of a reduction because you're spreading it out over more months. It would mean less, fewer changes for customers, so it would be simpler. Electricity prices are high now, so new contract price might not seem all that attractive, but we could ask for that as an option so you could consider it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
If there's a way
Here's my it's not a dilemma, it's just my challenge because we've talked about earlier before you got on, Paul, that each of us within our respective communities, needs to quote authorize this change. And so in my case, I need to present a motion to my select board. And I don't know, if I could word it based upon what we're talking about here. So I would be asking for for a motion that would allow us this retroactive change And I don't know whether we also need to include in that a request to first point, um, the extension to the contract as well, so that there are two pieces to this potentially, unless I'm wrong about that.
Could I
And
make a recommendation? Because this is how I view this kind of stuff, is the way to do it is to say, this is a fluid situation. I need your authorization for operating within a principle and operating within some sort of price bounds, rather than you, the select board, need to understand this stuff and constrain my actions as this thing changes dynamically. Just give me, like, here's the constraints I propose that you agree to. That would be my approach to it.
given the size of our, a smaller community, I think it's maybe a little more complicated. And I know in Amherst, they want more transparency than that. Like, I think they would have I mean, the town manager is basically authorized to do this, and essentially them giving us the approval to create the CCA sort of gave him that
Mhm.
ability. So I don't know, it might be that within the language of what was already approved in putting together the CCA, that maybe there is that ability, Bob, to sort of negotiate already.
So I wouldn't have to go back to the select board.
Yeah, I'm saying just,
Exactly.
I would look at the authorization, the town meeting authorization and select board authorization.
Okay,
Look at those
okay,
things. I think, look at the language in those, and
okay,
because I'm suspecting that you don't need to go back to them.
Yeah.
I think
okay.
that's part of this approval. I know, Ben, that you have to go.
I need to go to
We're
my
gonna
doctor's
still
appointment.
continue
Thank
for a
you
little
guys
bit.
so much.
I feel better, Ben.
I
Yeah.
will accommodate, like, Northampton can switch it up to match whatever option that Paul helps us finally settle on. And my vote will always be for the one that saves the most money for the customers, and we can tell them that.
Yeah,
Mine too.
exactly.
Mine too.
Right. Thanks, Dan. So Paul, so it sounds to me like, and something we hadn't really even thought of is like an extension of the current contract. Because we've locked, but it'll be locked in at the rates that we currently have for one more year. Is that the
Well,
case?
whatever they would tell us. So they would probably be different from what you have now. If we have the savings from the change in the rec, so that would push them in the downward direction.
Yep.
There's also a difference in electricity prices now, which might push them in another direction. So I think the thing to do is for me just to ask them for some specific options for you to consider so that you can
Good.
see exactly
Yep.
what the different things would mean. And then that's probably be easier to talk about them if we could assign numbers to them. It could be the extension just isn't attractive, and so you just want to take that off the table. Let's see what the numbers are. So I can do that and report back. I think like the sooner the better. So let me see how fast they can come up with some numbers for us.
And here's the thing. I mean, I think we need to see what those numbers are. I know everyone is anxious to have a decision before the next meeting, but I think we need to have those options to consider, have them be presented to us. And then as a group, decide what we think is the best strategy and then go, like, I know Ben's already got some authorization, but that was based on something that now is, quite frankly, sounding like it's going to be a little different. So I feel more comfortable personally getting that information, discussing it at the next meeting. Marlena could be there because I think we could still discuss strategy for outreach, because I think it sounds like we're going to go in some direction. Bob, do you think I'm being too cautious, or how do you feel in terms of what you need to do?
Well, I mean, I'm going to go back and look at the language in the town meeting warrant, and I'm guessing that it was as broad as it could possibly be. But I will check that language, and if it is as we think it might be, then I'm ready to do anything because I have the authority to vote in a way, vote on whatever change we want to make. I don't know how you feel your process needs to go because Paul is the guy that's sitting in the seat, the quote, decision maker seat.
Right,
That's
exactly.
in my case, it's me for our town
Right, right.
because I'm the chair of
Ben
our
is
select board.
authorized.
So Paul, and if Paul could come to the meeting.
Yeah, I mean, maybe that's what I do is just, but again, I mean, I could also talk to Paul beforehand, but
Yeah.
I just have to have everything. But I need to know what we as a group are deciding, and I'm still not 100% clear.
Well, it seems to me that we're looking to create the greatest possible savings for our customers.
Okay, so
And
whatever option is the greatest savings.
yes, I think that's where we're going. And Paul's going to do this research and is going to look at, well, here's what it would mean if we just applied it to the next 9 months, essentially, of the contract. However, First Point is maybe willing to give us a year's extension, and this is what they've quoted us, and this is what it would mean for those rates. And you might then be able to say, Paul, look, we're going to go out to bid in April. That was our plan. I think that's what was our plan. And you already know what's out there right now in terms of electric rates. You may say this year's extension is a good deal, this year's extension is a bad deal. um, so I think that we would be guided by what you came back to us with when you have the numbers, to determine it. So I think the guiding principle here is that we want to offer our customers the greatest savings possible based on the change the state has made in the REC program.
Yeah, okay. So Paul, our next meeting is going to be the week of March 12th. We don't know exactly which date yet. I'm going to be sending out a doodle poll and I will include you and Marlena in
Great.
that, see your availability.
It's actually the week of March 9th because the 12th is part of that week. So it's the week of March 9th.
Okay. All right. So, which means though that we would need this information prior to that meeting date, whatever that is,
If that's possible, Paul.
if it's possible.
Yes,
Yeah.
I can get the information. The only thing I'll say is if we're gonna look at a different price offers, I think we could do that if you were amenable to doing it in more of an executive meeting rather than a public meeting. I think we can talk conceptually in the public sessions, but I think if First Point's offering different price options, I think they would rather do that in an executive session.
Okay.
Can we do it? Okay. So, but the challenge is then that means we can't have our current, so like Adele Darcy and Andra wouldn't be able to attend this meeting. So,
Well, we could have a public meeting and then we could have an executive session as an agenda item, and we would adjourn the public meeting after we've had the general discussion, and we go into executive session to talk about the numbers.
okay, what I was
Definitely.
also going to go to though was that in the past, Paul has given us somewhat of a range that could be presented in public session. We could
Yes,
do something like that, like he
Yeah.
would give us a range, and so, and I think the range is fine, like, because it still gives
Okay.
us a very tangible
Yeah.
idea of, where the greatest savings would be. So
that's a
if you
good
could do
suggestion,
that,
Steph.
then
We
we
can
can
do that.
include everybody in the meeting and we don't have to have an executive session.
Okay, that's fine
Is
with
that
me.
okay, Paul?
Nope, that's absolutely fine.
Okay.
And so that sounds great. So I have to apologize. I have to run to something else, but I think I'll get numbers from First Point. I'll talk to them and they'll let you know when they can provide them to make sure it's fitting this schedule.
Okay, that's great.
Thanks,
Thank
Paul.
you so much for everything as
All right.
always.
Yeah,
Really
really appreciate it.
All
Wow,
right,
this
good to
is
see
amazing.
everyone.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, and Adele and Bob, thank you. I think I just want to very quickly close out. So our next meeting agenda will be posted when we have a date, and I'll confirm that date. And the meeting will be posted 48 hours in advance of the meeting. We don't have a date certain at this moment, but I think we'll just have to announce it 48 hours in advance.
Okay,
All right, thank you so much. Greatly
you.
appreciate you both.
good meeting. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Bye.